Lord, we just praise you for how great you are, how awesome and wonderful, how beautiful your name is, how wonderful, how powerful. You are our living hope. Lord, we just thank you and we give glory and honour to your name. Amen. Wonderful. Okay. Well, today we're going to get kind of stuck into it. We're going to be talking about the idea of strength and weakness a little bit. I know for a fact that I am not very strong physically. I am very weak. Does anyone else know for a fact? I am really, yeah. We're the people that it's like someone's like, can you lift this? And we're like, no, we can. I can help you lift it, but no, I cannot. I have never been successful in doing things like rope climbing or anything like that. I don't have the upper body strength. And I'm okay with that, I'm physically a bit weak and that's all right. But I know that sometimes I think I'm pretty strong in other ways when I'm probably a little bit weak. And I think we can all tend to do that. And we're going to look at a story in the Bible from the book of Judges. It's not something that we regularly open up, but it is one of my favourite books in the Bible in an interesting way. So we're going to go to Judges chapter 6. And I don't think this person will be necessarily unfamiliar to people, but it might be a little bit since you've looked at it or looked at it not in a kid's Bible as well. So Judges chapter 6, and we're going to start verse 1. We're going to do Judges chapter 6 and 7, but there are some bits that we're not going to look at in depth. I will just kind of tell you what happens in those parts. And then we will continue on. So there'll be some verses on the screen and some that we'll just talk about. So if you have it open in front of you, you can make sure that I'm not just telling you lies. That's my recommendation to you. I don't plan on doing that, but it's always good to follow along. So Judges chapter 6. And we're going to start with verses 1 to 6 here. And we're going to be introduced to a man called Gideon. So in the book of Judges, bit of context basically what's happened is they've been led, we learned last week all about what happened in Israel's early history, didn't we? They were led out of Egypt, they constantly forgot God, and then they were like, oh yeah, he's awesome and he did deliver us and provide for us, but then they grumble and they complain, and there's this big cycle, and ultimately they're told you have to wander in the wilderness for quite a long time until your generations have passed out, and then you can come into the promised land, but it'll just be your kids who get to go. You won't get to go in because you complained and disobeyed him. And then under Joshua, the people were following God. It's kind of like if you had a train, right? And a train, how does a train go where it's meant to? The tracks, right? So with Joshua, the train was on track, right? It was going the right way. And then what happens is we kind of get to Judges and it derails. And it's just gone off the tracks, off the rails, and it's gone insane. And we get a comment in chapter 2 that says, if I flip back, after that whole generation, so the generation that had been under Joshua, where they'd done what was right in the eyes of the Lord, after that whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation who grew up who neither knew the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshipped various gods of the peoples around them. They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsook him and served the Baals and the Ashtoreths. So they were into idol worship at this point after Joshua. Things are not good. And so what happens then in the book of Judges is it's this downward spiral, and we're going to focus in the middle of this spiral when things are they're getting bad, but they're not at the worst that they could be yet. So what happens is the people of Israel, they reject God, God sends someone to oppress them, and then they're like, wait, this is awful, we don't like this. And then they cry out to God finally after usually quite a decent amount, many, many years. They go, oh yeah, we can cry out to God. And then they do that, and then God sends a judge. Now, this judge wasn't so much like a legal judge like what we have today, where, they stand up with the gavel and they decide whether you go to prison or what your punishment is. It was a judge like a military leader, more like someone who would lead you into victory kind of thing. So raise up a judge who would then lead them out of that situation that they were in, to conquer those who were oppressing them, so that they could be free. And then things were good. They'd enjoy a period of peace for a little bit, and then they would again do evil in the eyes of God, and the cycle would just continue. And the things that happen just get uglier and uglier and uglier until we get to the end of the book, and it's very much not a PG-rated ending. So we're not going there. We're going to chapter 6 with Gideon. So it says in verse 1, The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Okay, that's the standard pattern. They did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts and caves and strongholds. So it's like they're hiding, right? They're like, man, this is really, like, we need to hide in the rocks. And it's like if we were playing a massive game of hide and seek, but this is like life or death kind of thing. They're hiding away. And whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern people invaded the country. They camped on the land, ruined the crops all the way to Gaza, and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep, nor cattle, nor donkeys. They came up with their livestock and their tents like swarms of locusts, like devouring everything in their path. They just eat everything. My mum hates the grasshoppers when they come into her garden because they eat everything, and locusts were like 10 times worse than a bajillion of them. And so it was like that idea of just taking everything in their path. It was impossible to count them or their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord for help. So a couple of things here. As I was reflecting on this, I noticed like when it talks about they prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves and strongholds. Where are we supposed to find our shelter as people of God? In God. You can answer. It's all right to call out. It's okay if you get things wrong too. That's totally fine, because sometimes I do that intentionally. In God. They were supposed to find their shelter in God, and instead they've rejected God. They've been doing evil in his eyes, and they've now had to create their own shelter. And now it's a physical shelter, but I actually think that that's quite a significant thing, isn't it? They're not sheltering in God. They're not coming under his protection and his provision. And they're impoverished because of it. They're lacking. They haven't got what they need. They're struggling. They're not thriving and flourishing. And so finally, they cried out to the Lord for help. Now, I find this really interesting because it sounds like they've been under the oppression of Midian and the Amalekite for quite a while, hey, because by this point they've got nothing left. Like everything's been taken, it's been ravished, they're so impoverished. And it's only when it's so desolate, so devastating, so destroyed that they finally turn to God. And I wonder why. And it sounds to me like they're pretty self-dependent, aren't they? And when we're self-dependent, it takes us actually getting to that point of being so impoverished, so lacking, so desperate, because we've got nothing, that we actually finally turn to God. Because they could have turned to God at any point. The second that Midian came, they could have been like, oh wait, yeah, okay, we've done the wrong thing, God help us. And they could have spared all of this. But they didn't. Because they probably kept trying to depend on themselves, their own strategies, their own plans, their own wisdom, and it's left them in a mess. So self-dependent people struggle because we're actually not made to depend on ourselves. And we continue on. When the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites in whose land you live." But you have not listened to me. I always find it interesting whenever I find a passage like this, we kind of just gloss over it sometimes because it feels like a bit of a repetition. But I always highlight in my Bible the word I when God says that, because it's not me, it's him, I. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. They should have known that they could depend on God because their entire history had been God showing them that they could depend on him. They had brought them out of the biggest oppressor they'd ever faced under Egypt and delivered them. He delivered them from that and rescued them from that. And not just that, he's provided all of this land. He drove out all of these people before them that they could have this land he's promised them. And not just that, but he actually loves them. Like he has this special relationship with them where he is their God and they are his people. They have every reason to know that they can depend on God, and yet they have not listened. They've turned away from God. And again, like last week, it's really easy to sit here and go, man, Israel, so dumb. those thoughts when they read this, they're like, man, Israel's really not got it together. But honestly, are we not the same? Don't we do this all the time? Like, we know we can depend on God. We have seen him turn up time and time again. We know from the Bible the things he's done in the past as well, not just in our own lives. We have stories from other people's lives, and yet we constantly try to depend on ourselves and do things in our own strength. We come up to battles and we face them in our own strength. We come to every single day and we go, you know what, I've got this. This I can do. I can go to work. I can go to school. I can be a parent. I can do all these things. But actually, we need God's strength for every single day, every day afresh. And we can depend on him. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak of Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Now, poor Gideon, he goes, "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." A couple of things I find really interesting here. I love this just statement here, the Lord is with you. I want you to remember that, okay? The Lord is with you. That's important. And important throughout the whole Bible. But mighty warrior. I don't think Gideon sitting here kind of hiding away, threshing his wheat in a way that was going to be a bit sneaky so the Midianites wouldn't take it. I don't think he's feeling like a mighty warrior right now, is he? He's probably feeling a bit scared, he's hiding away a bit. And this angel says to him, "Mighty warrior." And I love Gideon's reply. It's like, "Pardon me. Pardon me, my Lord." And then I find this really interesting because it's a little bit of a blame, isn't it? But if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? That the Lord's abandoned us, right? This is sort of what he's saying. He's saying God isn't with us. Like, you've just said that the Lord is with me. Well, obviously he's not with us because look at the state that we're in. And we are so quick in our world when things don't go our way to say, well, where is God? Right? Where is he? Why has he abandoned me? But actually, we forget that if we go back, the first verse, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Actually, who's abandoned who? The Israelites have actually abandoned God. And a lot of the time we do that too. We forget, we start depending on ourselves, or we start trying to do things our way. And then we go, well, where is God? This is a mess. Why isn't he helping me? It's like, because actually we've walked away a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean we walked away from our salvation, that we've turned our back on Jesus, but we do it in lots of little ways, don't we? Where we just go, I've got this, I can do this my way. Or where we just feel like the amount of times someone will say to me, I feel like God is telling me I need to do this, and then you check in with them a little bit later and they're like, oh no, I'm actually just going to go do this. It's like, well, has what you feel like God said to you changed? No. So do you think you should do this? Oh, but I'm too scared, I don't want to. There's all these other reasons and things like that. And then I often watch them go through just a massive period of struggling until they do the thing that God has said. And I think it was Elizabeth Elliot who said, so much of what we call struggling these days is actually just delayed obedience. Which I thought was pretty true and a pretty hard-hitting comment to make. But this idea of, actually, it's not God who abandons us. We walk away from him. And so it's an opportunity to actually repent and come back when we realise that. We can't blame God. That's often our first instinct. But I don't actually think it's right. The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" Okay, I'm going to pause there. I find this really interesting because it's kind of like he's been saying, well, you're not with us. Like, where are you? Like, you've abandoned us. And this is almost like, I feel like this comment is, seems to me that it's actually kind of a bit of a, like, God is trying to highlight what Gideon doesn't have, right? So go in the strength that you have and save Israel. Am I not sending you? And then Gideon's reply, "Pardon me, my Lord." Gideon replied, "But how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. And I love Gideon's response here, because Gideon, I think, picks up on this. Rather than going, yes, I've got the strength, and off he goes, actually, I don't have the strength. I don't have the strength. Who am I? He says, basically, like, we are the weakest clan, and I am the least in my family. Like, why would you pick me? What have I got to offer? I have no strength. How on earth could I save Israel out of Midian's hand when they've been oppressing us so ferociously for so long? And in God, I think, saying, go in the strength you have, he's, I think, pointing out just how far that they have wandered from God's strength and from depending on him. And so the Lord answers, I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites living and alive. I will be with you, he says. Yes, Gideon, you are weak, you are the least, but I am God, he says. Like, I am the most powerful God, he says. There is none like me. I will be with you. And that is enough. I think that's just such an amazing thing. How strong do you think you are? Someone recently asked me the question, what is the largest animal that I think I could take in a fight? Like, to be honest with you, a cockroach? I don't know, and even then, some of them are pretty big and scary, and that's partly just because I have no interest in killing an animal. But then they send me this, and they're like, come on, like, which one would you pick? I was like, gee, I don't know. So turn to the people around you, which one do you think you could take in a bite? And we'll see who's a little bit delusional here. None of them, I know, I agree. And because it's not just about how heavy it is, it's about the power of its jaws and its teeth and its claws. And does anyone think they could take a golden jackal? I reckon there's some people here who could take a golden jackal. I might be able to do it on a good day. Coyote? No? Guys, come on, we're being very humble right now. Surely there's someone here, Jacob, surely you can take something here. Golden jackal, come on. I feel like an auctioneer, like, anyone going to take the golden jackal? Life or death scenario? No one.
We're all done. We're not sure what a golden jackal is.
No, I'm not either. I'm going off how heavy it is. It'd be a small dog, like a dog kind of thing, right? But a little bit wide.
What about the big one?
You could lift it. Like, surely we could. I reckon a lot of people could lift a lot of these. So the question is, can you just pick it up and throw it? Yeah, like, you don't have to kill it. You just need to be able to scare it off. Like, not have it destroy you. See, my answer was I'd just give it a hug. But, like, I don't know. Well,
When you do
a great Nice. Well, that's a question for you to keep pondering. Now, what about together? If a couple of you got together, what do you think you could take? Maybe we can go a little bit further. If all of us were pouncing on one animal, what could we take? A polar bear. Tony's got a lot of faith in us right now. I think it's good. It sounds like we know we're not very strong, at least physically. But this is maybe more of a rhetorical question. But how strong do you think you are in other ways? Like, how often do you find yourself depending on your own strength or thinking that you can just do it? Yeah, I really do love these verses. I love just the gentle way that God kind of highlights it. Gideon doesn't have the strength and then says, I have the strength and I am with you. When I say I, I'm not saying me, I'm saying God has it. And then Gideon replied, if now I have found favour in your eyes, give me a sign that it is really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you. And the Lord said, I will wait until you return. Gideon really wanted to be sure. He's like, okay, like, if I've got to do this thing and I know I've got nothing, then, like, I had better be sure that God is really with me and that he is really going to do this thing. And it's an interesting thing because there's another sign that Gideon asks for later, which might be a little bit more familiar, with the fleece. And some people see that as a really good thing, and some people go, no, he's testing God, he shouldn't have been asking. But I think the thing is, God was really gracious. God knew that he had a plan for Gideon. He knew that Gideon was weak. He knew Gideon was fearful. And Gideon was actually quite fearful and afraid. And we see that throughout the rest of Gideon's story. And ultimately, in the end, Gideon's fear leads him to kind of get a little bit power hungry, and he tries to take some glory for himself. And it's not a beautiful ending. It's not the worst ending out of everything, but it's actually not that great. So what happens then? I'll do a little summarizing for you. So Gideon goes, he gets the offering basically, he brings it back, he puts it on this rock, and then the angel of the Lord touches it, consumes it, it like goes up in flames, and then the angel disappears. And then when Gideon realizes that it's the angel of the Lord, he exclaims, "Alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." And he was afraid he was going to die because he'd seen this. And the Lord's like, "Peace, do not be afraid, you're not going to die." And then Gideon builds an altar, calls it the Lord is Peace. And then God tells him to take a second bull and to tear down his father's altar of like the Baal, and cut down the Asherah poles, and to build a proper altar and to offer the bull on it. So he does that at night because he was afraid to do it. So he goes out at night with 10 servants, and he pulled it all down and he put up what he was supposed to, did the offering. And then the people came out in the morning and they were like, "Where are our altars? Where are our altars to the Baals and our Asherah poles? And what is this altar doing here?" And then they investigate and they find out it's Gideon, and they then demand to Gideon's dad, they're like, "Bring him out, he must die because he's cut down the Baal, like the Baal's altar and the Asherah poles." And then Gideon's dad is like, "Why are you freaking out? Let Baal defend himself if he's so great." And then we get to what is going to come after. So that's where we're up to. Gideon does a couple of sacrifices. He's kind of going, okay, we can do this. God is with me. I have confirmation that this is God, and we'll see what happens next. But first we're going to take a little pause and come back to our memory verse. All right, here's how we're going to do this. We did this a few weeks ago. We're going to alternate it. So if you are on this side of the room, you're going to start with the red words. If you are on this side of the room, you're going to start with the blue words, and then the purple words we're all going to say together. Makes sense? All right, are you ready? So, but he said to me,
"My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness. Let Christ's power may rest on me. For when I am weak, then I am strong."
Okay, now I want to hear it the other way. You guys are going to be red, you're going to be blue, but we're going to whisper it this time. All right, but he said to me,
My power is made perfect in weakness.
okay, this time we're going to, within reason, use our loudest voices within reason, okay? Starting with red and then blue. Okay, you ready? But he said to me,
My grace is sufficient for you. For my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness. So that Christ's power may rest on me. For when I am weak, then I am strong.
very good. Now this time, last time, I want you to try and make every word very, very clear. So the clearest diction that you can use, I'm going to determine which side I can understand the most clearly. Okay, so you need to speak as clearly as possible, hit those consonants. You go a little bit slower maybe, but try and do it as a group, because if it gets muddy, then I can't understand you. So we're going to do, what do we just do? Is this red this time? Yep, red and blue. You ready? So, but he said to me,
My grace is sufficient for you. For my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. For when I am weak, then I am strong.
very good. Nicely done. Okay, we're going to take a pause from that. We're just slowly getting it into our brains. And we're going to do something one more time at the end before I give you a little test. So be ready. We're going to continue on though with our story of Gideon. So after the sacrifices, the altars, they've torn down the Baal. So now they're actually ready for whatever God has. because they've got their hearts back right with him. Gideon has removed the thing that was taking them away from God, that they're abandoning God for, and now put God back in the center of their vision. So it says, verse 33, now all the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples joined forces and crossed over the Jordan and camped in the valley of Jezreel. Then the Spirit of the Lord came on Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, summoning the Abiezrites to follow him. He sent messages throughout Manasseh, calling them to arms, and also into Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, so that they too went up to meet them. Now, we have a great threat. This is like all of the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples, and they're joined together. This is a terrifying army, a terrifying picture. This is like, oh my goodness, I don't even know. It's like I feel like if all of Blacktown joined against us. Let's go with that kind of like, and they were like, you'd be like, whoa, that's a lot of people. It's probably, the ratio is probably a little bit skewed. But that's kind of the idea, right? Massive army. It was a great, terrifying threat. And Gideon said to God, if you will save Israel by my hand, as you have promised, look, I'll place a wool fleece, like a piece of wool, a material piece of wool, on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you said. And that is what happened. Gideon rose early the next day. He squeezed the fleece, wrung out the dew, and a bowl full of water. Then Gideon said to God, do not be angry with me. Let me make just one more request. Allow me one more test with the fleece, but this time make the fleece dry and let the ground be covered with dew. That night God did so. Only the fleece was dry, all the ground was covered with dew. Now this is a little bit of divination, right? It's a little bit questionable, we kind of think, but God allows it, and again, I think because he recognises that Gideon is fearful and he's being quite gracious. In the first one, this is actually something that the fleece being wet after the night with dew and the ground being dry, that actually would have been a normal thing. So he's actually asking for something that is quite normal and natural. And so probably more what he's doing here is kind of giving God an opportunity to do something supernatural and the opposite, and not make it wet when it should probably be wet. So as a sign, if it wasn't meant to be, then do it almost the opposite way, or not have it happen. But then what happens, and it's kind of like, well, that could just be a coincidence, because that could just be explained by natural reasons. So then he kind of puts it to the test one more time, but to the opposite, that it would really take more of a miracle to happen. And he says, okay, well, this time let it be the reverse. Let the fleece be dry, the ground be covered with dew, because this wouldn't happen. Like the fleece wouldn't be dry and the ground covered with dew kind of thing. And then God did. So God was very gracious, I think. And grace, that just means like he's giving a gift or doing something he doesn't have to do, like we haven't earned, just out of his character and his nature, and wanting to be kind, I guess, in a way. So mercy, I guess mercy and grace are a little bit different. Mercy is kind of like you're spared something that you do deserve, like a punishment. Grace is like you're given something that you don't deserve. So I think God is being pretty gracious here with Gideon's weakness. Now, then we come to the day of the battle. Early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, that's his other name, and all his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Morah. The Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Now, this is a weird thing to say. Like, have you ever seen an army going into battle and the commander's like, guys, we have a problem. We have too many soldiers. Too many soldiers. That just doesn't happen, does it? There's never too many soldiers. The more the merrier, because the more you have, the more likely you are to win, and to win so victoriously. No, there's too many of you. I can't deliver them into your hands right now because you'll say that you did this. He knows that right now they are actually too strong to recognize his strength. They aren't aware yet enough of their weakness to be able to turn back to God. There's too many of them. If they win, they will go, well, it's because there were so many of us and we're awesome. We won. Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 men left while 10,000 remained. So now they're going to cull the army. God's like, we're going to cull this army. We need to get it down. Because I want to show that I'm God, he says. But the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. If I say this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. Fun fact, this story is one of the only stories I remember from like early primary school, Sunday school, because they made us act it out. But we're going to play a little game. How do you do it? Okay, how do you do it? So I'm going to get you a show of hands, and I'm going to give you like a couple of things. I'm going to give you some options for how you do this thing or whether you do this thing. And we're going to pretend that we're like the army coming against Midian, and I'm going to dwindle us down, okay? Because I think we're just too big to come up against us. Say we've got an army of cockroaches on the stage. You know what? I think there's too many of us. I'd actually be like, all of us are up killing this, but we're going with the game. So, when you brush your teeth, do you rinse your mouth, A, with water from a cup or straight from the tap? Okay. Can you put your hand up if it's with water from a cup? Water from a tap? Wow. Okay. I'm going to get rid of my water from the cup, people. Sorry. You're not included in the army anymore. Sorry. I'm getting rid of you. But we haven't dwindled enough, have we? All right. Next one. All right. This is controversial. There's a couple of really controversial ones in here. Do you store tomato sauce, A, in the pantry or B, in the fridge? There is a right answer to this, by the way. Put your hand up if you store it in the pantry. In the fridge. Wow. All right, my pantry people, I'm so sorry. It says on the bottle, refrigerate after opening, so I'm calling you. But, that's your choice. All right, this one's very divisive. Do you put pineapple on pizza? Yes or no? Put your hand up if it's yes. Do you like pineapple on pizza? No? What about nose? Ooh. I'm going to cull my nose, sorry, because I love pineapple on pizza. All right, now this one, fun fact, this is the thing that will create the most division in a mission team out of everything, okay? Out of an intercultural mission team. Are you ready? When you wash your dishes, this is a true thing, like this actually causes division. When you wash your dishes, there's 3 options here, and everyone can put their hands up because I want to know anyway. When you wash your dishes, do you A, fill up, say, 1 sink with water, you just put the dish straight in, you haven't pre-rinsed it, you scrub it, it's got dish soap in there, whatever, and then you dry it. Okay, you don't rinse it after either. Do you rinse it beforehand or rinse it after washing it in the soap? Either or, one can fit in there, whether you pre-rinse or you post-rinse the suds off and then dry it. Or do you run the tap and wash it and then dry it after, so you don't ever actually fill the sink? Think about it. All right, anyone who are my A's? They fill up a sink, it all goes in the one thing and straight out. Yeah, okay. B's? Yeah, nice. And C's? Yeah, there you go. Now, this is a very, who would get annoyed if someone else did the other way? Anyone? Yeah, so apparently Australians will do A typically. Americans will always go for B. They will always rinse after washing it as well. They'll have a separate thing to rinse the suds off, probably because the chemicals are so bad. And then typically people from Asian parts of the world will go for C. And so when you have an intercultural team, it gets insane and people are very passionate about it. So hold on, who was A again? B and C. I'm going to give my C's then. C's, you're the army. Okay, so you're the army. I'm not going to make you do anything. I did think about making you do a challenge, but we're not going to. But that's kind of what this was like. It was sort of what is going to happen next. So Gideon took the men all down to the water. There the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps from those who kneel down to drink. So 300 of them drank from cupped hands, lapping like dogs, and the rest got on their knees to drink. The Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. Wow, okay, so now remember, we are faced with all of the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples who have joined together. And how big is Gideon's army? 300. That's not 3,300. That's not very big. That is terrifyingly small if you're up against a big army. Because remember, how many did they send home? There was 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. So 10,000, that's a decent number. That's a lot of people, and probably a good number to go in battle with if you want to win. I mean, 22,000, having those extra 22,000 would be really awesome. So this army started with what, 32,000? And we're down to 300. That's a big drop, okay? The odds do not seem to be in Israel's favour right now. But that's kind of the point. It seems very, very weak now. Now, then what happens is God tells Gideon to go down in the night, down to kind of the Midianite camp, and says, I'm going to give it into your hands. And God knows that Gideon is still a bit afraid, so he's trying to give Gideon a little bit more reassurance. And then after this, you'll listen to what they're saying, and then you'll be encouraged to attack the camp. And so they go down, they do this, and they hear that the Midianites someone had a dream, and they know. The Midianites say, it must be Gideon who, God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into Gideon's hands. And so then Gideon, after hearing the dream, worships God, bows down, worships God, and goes back and says, the Lord has given it into our hands, let's go and do it. So what weapons would you take if you were going into battle? What would you take? Gun, a sword, some kind of weapon, perhaps, would be the thought, right? Well, Gideon and his army just simply took not that. They took torches or jars that he gave them. He placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them with torches inside, and that is what they took down. Trumpets, empty jars with torches inside. And then they go down, and then they get around to the edge of the camp, and then when he tells them, they blow the trumpets and they shout for the Lord and for Gideon, which is a mild problem. And then they break the jars that are in their hands, smashing the jars and holding the torch, and they're blowing the trumpets. And then the Midianites ran around and actually were so terrified that they started killing each other. And so the Midianites were destroyed by the Midianites. And then God has delivered them into their hands, into Israel's hands. And that's kind of how that story ends. So God did come through. God did show his strength and his power in the midst of Israel's weakness. And utter weakness to 300 people. There's a couple of questions here for you to talk about with your groups. First off, you can say, what stands out to you from the story? That one's not on the screen. What stood out to you? What was significant to you from the stories that we looked at today? And then how do you often depend on yourself instead of on God? Practically, what are some ways that you actually find yourself just depending on yourself? We all do it. And in what areas do you need to choose to depend on God right now and not on yourself? So what stood out to you from the story? How do you often depend on yourself instead of on God? And in what areas do you need to choose to depend on God and not yourself right now? And what are some steps you can take with that? Sorry, I'll get
Wonderful.
bring it back in. It's so good to see everyone talking and having good discussion. I'd be interested to hear, what are some things, you don't need to out anyone's personal thing that they shared, but what are some things that you guys discussed as a group, if you did, or you can just yell it out even if you didn't discuss, that you think we do when we're depending on ourselves? What is it? Intellect, yeah, we depend on our intellect. What are some signs or symptoms that we're depending on ourselves? Maybe is a way of thinking about it. Anxiety, yeah. Crying, fear.
Feel arrogant.
Sorry. Overconfidence, yeah. Ruminating thoughts, yeah. Arrogance, yeah. Lack of prayer, that's a massive one. That's my biggest cue. I know I'm depending on myself. Frustration, maybe. Anger. Even sickness, I think. Stress. What are some other things? Anything else I'm missing? Irritability. Yeah. Okay, we'll flip it. What are some signs and symptoms that you're depending on God?
Peace.
Surrender. Yeah.
Humble.
Sorry.
Humble.
What's it?
Humble.
Humble. Yeah. Confidence. And not like an arrogant confidence, but a humble confidence in God. Yeah. prayerfulness. I think that's a really good one. I think if we're depending on God, we should be bringing everything in prayer. Somebody was saying to me yesterday, she's a mum of like an 18-month-old, and she was like, some days I go into my room and I just cry, and I pray, and I'm like, God, I just need you to give me what I need for today. And he always does. But how often would we just go about and try and do that ourselves? And I was really struck by that comment because, yeah, it's really easy. It's kind of like forgetting God, like what we talked about last week. Hey? It's really easy to start depending on ourselves, forgetting God. We go off at the Israelites for it a bit, but man, oh man, we're guilty of it. As we kind of come in, Tony's going to come up in a bit and talk about this. Actually, Tony, do you want to do that now? I'll hand over to Tony for a few minutes and he can talk about this, and then we will start.
Have one? Yes. Yes.
I guess things we're looking at this year is we want to prepare people for ministry. We want people to step out in ministry or to trust God, because if you step out, you're always going to trust God. And so one of the things, and there's a bit of a blurb there about our focus, but there's two areas here that I'd like to think about: prepare and stepping out. And this year, you're going to have an opportunity to prepare yourself and sorry, I won't walk around so much. You have an opportunity to prepare. There's a few options here. If you go online, there's a thing called a free shape test, and then you can answer all these questions to understand where are you going to fit well. And if you put my email address, pastor@vocationalbaptist.org.au, you can actually send me a copy and we can talk about it. I will talk with you about your area of giftedness. One way you're going to be prepared was to be in a home group, and there's going to be weekly ones on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Fridays, and there's going to be one that's semi-regular on a Saturday from 6 p.m. So if you'd like to be involved with that, there's a box there, and there's a name at the top. Any ideas why I put name and box for the tick? So that you can fill it out, rip it, and give it back to me. There's things like PRU training. There's SRE Connection Day, or Children and Youth Connection Day on 21st of March. Emerging Leaders. There's the Creating Safe Spaces. If you want to work with children in our church, or if you want to work with anyone of vulnerable peoples, you need to have done our training. And so that's a good way to prepare, because we take seriously looking after, we want to make sure this is a safe church for everyone. Now, you might be thinking of biblical theological studies. I'd love to know that. Chaplaincy. But there's also other passions. So tell me about your passions. If you've got a vision, you've got a desire, a dream, if you want to go and fight the Midians and the Amorites, let me know. We'll get some more trumpets here. Stepping out, there's different options. SRE, teaching kids about Jesus in our public school system. It's a remarkable privilege. I don't know of anywhere in the world where we can do that, but we can do that here. If you'd like to be involved, we've got chaplaincies. If you'd like to explore chaplaincy, I'd love to talk to you. Alpha Park, we have that community lunch back. It's going to be back this Friday, and we're going to be having lunch. There's the Happy Hands Playgroup, and so talk to Fuzzy if you could be involved with reaching, developing a program where we reach mums and grandmas or fathers of kids in the local area. The majority of them are people from overseas. So please be aware of that. The Crossroad Prison Ministry, if you've got a pen and you can write and you can read, you can be involved with mentoring prisoners in jails. Just this week, when you got one or two that she wrote back, it's a great program. There's other prison ministries which could be available, and there's different ways you can serve at church: hospitality, welcoming, administration, Jan. I've already had someone tick administration. Can you believe that? They want to be involved with administration. Youth and young people, Bible reading. I'm going to read the Bible up the front here. I'll pray. I'll be involved with the pastoral care team. We're trying to develop that this year. Other involvements. There's the Horizons Legal Support every other Friday. We have people come in who need to get some support, legal support, and we want to make sure they're welcomed and there's relationships built. And so if you're involved with that, or the last option, share your passion or your dream of passion. If you've got a dream of passion, I'd love to know. And so here is, can I ask, don't wait too long, either today or next week. Now, I'm going to be guest speaking at another church at Currajong next week, so I won't be here, but Fuzzy, Multi, Natalie can all collect that from you. Last thing I want to say is, if you've been reading with us through Proverbs for January, second last thing, Proverbs for January, then in February, we're going to start in Psalms. So February 1, we're going to do Psalm chapter, have a guess, 1. That's really wonderful. This is a tricky one. On the 10th of February, what chapter might we read? Very good. On the 18th of February? No, not the 18th. No, we're going to get a whole new program. We're going to start 18th. It's going to be Lent. We're going to follow up. We're going to get ready for Easter. And so 18th of February, I will give you another pamphlet with all the readings that you can read at home. And we're going to be encourage people to pray, fast, and give. Thanks, Natalie.
Yeah, I want to Tony up now is I think there are two kind of ways that we can approach things like this. We can kind of go, oh yes, I can do all these things because I have the strength. And so my challenge to you in that is to go, love the enthusiasm, make sure you're depending on God in the things that you're committing to and in the things that you're doing, in the ways you're serving. But I know for a lot of people, there'll be a lot of apprehension around some things and maybe some concerns or some feelings of like, pardon me, Lord, but what do you mean? Like, can I really do this? And that's an encouragement to you as well. It's okay. Like, God's got the strength and God is with you. And so if he's calling you to do something, you can say yes and depend on his strength. So consider that and consider your weakness and his strength as you ponder how you might prepare to step out and trust God this year. We're going to look at the memory verse one more time. We'll do 2 more songs of worship to finish up after that. But here we go. All right. One more time. We're going to do 2 more times just alternating and then we're going to do something different. So red, blue. Red and blue, red and blue, red and blue. I want you to say it in your most dramatic voice you can this time. But he said to me,
My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all Let Christ's power rest on me.
For when I am weak, then I am strong. Awesome. All right. Actually, we'll just leave that one there. Now, we're not going back, by the way. I'm going to give you a little puzzle. I'm going to give one to the group that talked down here, one to the group that's talking in the middle. Now, you need to put the memory verse in order. I know, hard times, you'll be fine. One for this group, one for, there's a group in the middle and a group in the back. No phones, no cheating, none of that allowed, thank you. Back to you. Let's see which group can piece it together more. No Bibles allowed. I can't believe I'm saying this, but no Bibles allowed, no phones allowed, no cheating. Go. When you get it done, I want your group to all look at me with their hands on their heads.
Hey, what's the first one? Let's find one. So I think it's
No, the he said to me is not there. It's just that, so it's continuing on from here. So the but he said to me is on the screen. You don't need to do that. It's just from the quotation.
Still a couple.
Right.
Five seconds, here we go. Oh. 1, 2, 3, my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly in about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. For when I am weak, then I am strong.